I'm Renee Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. We have some really interesting topics, and sometimes, we try to get back down to our basic and try to figure out what something actually is.
Right. Yes, and there are a lot of things out there when we're talking about our woods and wildlife, and this one we're going to focus on birds, right?
What's a bird?
Yeah, exactly. Bird's the word.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Oh gosh, that's a flashback.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody's like, oh gosh, what's going on? Yeah,
Right.
no, we've got DJ is going to be with us, Dr. McNeil. He's been on the show times before, but this time we're going to be talking about what is a bird, like you said, the basics of that. We really appreciate Dr. McNeil putting this together. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about it's National Forest Stewardship Week that the National Association of Conservation Districts is celebrating. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, and also a little bit about stewardship efforts related to kind of forest here in Kentucky as well, following DJ. So if you all have questions for us, please use the chat function if you're on Zoom. And if you're on YouTube, you can hit us up via email. Or if you're also a podcast listener, you can hit us up via email at forestry.extension@uky.edu. And for those that don't know, this is a podcast as well. So you can get it at all your streaming platforms.
Right. Well. And so like you can take us with you in the car, like, yay for them, right?
Yeah, hey, we can help you mow your grass.
Why not? Sometimes that's when I listen to mine.
I'm telling you, I get a lot of yard work done listening to podcasts. So they're a lot of fun. But yeah, check us out there. And as always, we appreciate you all being with us each and every week. And, as always, also let others know about this. We know there's a lot of people out there in the state that would really appreciate learning more about our woods and wildlife and natural resources here in Kentucky. And we try to do that with this show. And as always, we ask for your feedback if there's something you all want to see in the future.
We do. A lot of shows that we've had have been suggestions from people who watch.
That's right.
And I've said this before, but one is, just a pile of rocks. What is that? He wanted to know why he has piles of rocks in his woods. And so we've got a geologist, and she told him, why are these possibilities of what the pile of rocks are? So it's just different things like that. So there's a lot of topics that may relate to the woods, even if you don't think they do. Right. They might. You just never know.
Yeah. So if you're thinking about it and you're curious about it, I bet others are too.
Oh, I'm sure.
So, so make sure you let us know. But I guess, Renee, without any further ado, let's get into DJ's presentation. Sure. And again, we appreciate Dr. McNeil for putting this together, and we'll be sharing that with you all right now.
Okay, folks, welcome to another Wings of Kentucky. This is Dr. DJ McNeil. I'm excited to discuss with you on this month's Wings of Kentucky, what is a bird? And of course, we've got a familiar species to many folks here, northern cardinal. And you may think you know a lot about northern cardinals. You see them at your bird feeder, you see them around. But today, we will dive into what makes a bird and how we got here. So what the heck even is a bird? Well, here we have a nice image of a blue jay, pretty standard bird, if you will. They're warm-blooded animals. They're vertebrates, meaning that they have a spine. They have feathers, right? They're the only animals with feathers. They have toothless, beaked jaws, which is somewhat unique. They lay eggs, which of course there are a lot of other animals that lay eggs, but birds are among the egg-laying animals. They have high metabolic rates, which is untrue of many organisms. They have four-chambered heart, a highly pneumatized skeleton with some exceptions. That's a fancy term meaning that it's mostly hollow inside their bones, and they're found on all continents. So this is our world, and when we're thinking about birds. But how the heck did we even get here to this world thing? So basically the birds and the crocodilians form a clade together. So if you want to have a sort of a proper taxonomic treatment of reptiles, you either need to exclude the crocodilians so that the turtles, tuataras, and the squamates, which are the snakes and lizards, they form their own group, and crocodilians and birds are their own group, or you need all of this together. So it's one of those things we have to decide, do we want to call birds reptiles, or do we want to call crocodilians birds? We have to kind of pick one or the other. I tend to just call birds reptiles for that exact reason. And as we'll discuss today, I think it'll be quite clear that birds really do have their historical roots in reptilia. So it all began about 240 million years ago with this large group that we call the archosaurs, or the ruling reptiles. And if we look at the phylogenetic tree of the different organisms in the archosaurs, it includes a lot of different sort of these classical dinosaurs, including some of the flying ones like the pterosaurs. It includes modern day crocodilians, which have changed very little over the past 240 million years. It included things like stegosaurus, these long-necked sauropods. Tyrannosaurus rex falls into here somewhere, actually pretty close to birds. And then we've got, of course, birds out here as a relatively modern group of archosaur. So there's no question birds are archosaurs for sure. Now, birds radiated and diversified from other pteropods about 160 million years ago. So these are things like Tyrannosaurus, things like Allosaurus. A lot of these kind of bipedal predatory dinosaurs split off 160 million years ago, with the class Avis, which are the birds, radiating out from. And it's a fun kind of word, Archaeopteryx. Archae, like archaeology, archae means ancient, and P-T-E-R-Y-X, pteryx, with the P being silent, means wing, right? So like pterodactyl, referring to a winged dinosaur. So Archaeopteryx, ancient wing, had a mix of bird-like characteristics and dinosaur-like characteristics. So bird-like characteristics included flight feathers, right? These asymmetrical flight feathers for actually flying. A fully reversible hallux, that's that back toe that many species of birds have that kind of points backward. These reduced like finger bones. Now it still did have full finger bones, and it had claws at the ends of them. It had a fan-shaped tail like many birds, as well as a furcula, as with many birds. But it also had a variety of dinosaur-like traits. It had unfused metacarpals and metatarsals. It did not have a keratinized beak. It had teeth, right? There are no bird species with teeth. It had a long unfused tail. So we'll look at some images of bird skeletons, and birds we know have very small fused tails. It had a pelvic structure very similar to a dinosaur, and it had a sternum with a keel. It lacked a sternum with a keel. As we'll look at with, we'll have an image of a duck. The keel bone, which is kind of the sternum, when you cut open your Thanksgiving turkey, that's where all your breast muscle is at. That is an adaptation for powered flight. Well, right? So we see, for instance, the fully reversible hallux here that we see on. Of course, flight feathers for sustained flight being another characteristic that's very bird-like. Now, we've got Archaeopteryx splitting off from splitting off from theropod dinosaurs 140 to 160 million years ago. That's all well and good, but there's something interesting here. If we look at this split here, where we have Archaeopteryx, 140 to 160 million years ago, feathers are first thought to have evolved around 190 million years ago. So we have other dinosaur species that did not fly that had feathers. So this begs the question, what the heck are feathers even for if they're not for flight, right? And this is one of the confusing things about evolution. A half evolved wing doesn't do anyone any good. So how could wings ever evolve if there's no intermediate form, right? This is kind of the confusing thing. Well, feathers that we see in modern day birds used for flight, at least flight feathers, were originally evolved for a different function. So flight feathers are believed to be what's called an exaptation. So these are traits originating in an organism to perform one function and then later co-opted for a different function. For example, lungfish are an ancient group of fish that actually have a lung that they use to breathe air with. Now, in most other fish, they have this same organ, the same lung, but it's no longer used as a lung. It is now used as a swim bladder to regulate buoyancy. So what was once an actual lung in a lungfish is now a swim bladder in most contemporary fish species. So this is just another example of an exaptation where one trait is evolved in an organism for a specific function and then transformed into something else later. So this begs the question, why did feathers originally evolve in birds? One hypothesis is for insulation, kind of the dino fuzz hypothesis, where historically those feathers were primarily just to keep animals warm. Another question is incubation. For example, here's a Canada goose incubating a clutch of eggs, which we're seeing a lot of our Canada geese here in Kentucky do right now, versus a 150 million year old dinosaur fossil that has a similar posture with its wings, or its arms, forelimbs spread out over top of a clutch of eggs. Or maybe sexual selection. I mean, a lot of bird species use that beautiful plumage to attract a mate and to ward off competitors and that sort of thing. It's entirely possible that dinosaurs originally evolved those feathers as a way of looking sexy for the ladies and attracting a mate. It's very possible. Now, so where are we today? Well, the Cretaceous Tertiary extinction, which is sometimes called the KT extinction, basically took this whole group of archosaurs and wiped out everything that I have grayed out here. So all we have left are the crocodilians and their relatives and birds. Bearing in mind that there were archosaurs that were much more related to birds than crocodilians are, but those are now gone. So what we have is this one clade where birds and crocodilians are together. They don't look very similar to one another, but they are what's left after the Cretaceous Tertiary extinction. And after the Cretaceous Tertiary extinction, or the KT boundary, about 66 million years ago, we were left with 4 groups of birds. So we have the ratites here, so these are things like, this is a kiwi, cassowaries, ostriches, rheas, emus, things like that. The waterfowl, so this is the mallard, the anseriforms, galliforms, what we often think of as upland game birds, or upland fowl, and then of course neo-aves, which are the modern birds, which eventually would give rise to the passeriforms, which are the largest order of birds, the perching birds. So, where are we today? Well, we've got about 10,000 species of bird in the world that have arisen since that time. Some have gone extinct, and we are left with about 10,000 today. Now, Kentucky has far fewer species. We'll talk about a few of those in a moment. But some of these birds have kind of walked back. Some of these like adaptations that are kind of classic bird characteristics. For instance, loons have basically dense, solid bones, unlike most birds. Or, for instance, this is a common merganser. You can see it's got what effectively are teeth. They're not teeth. They're keratinous extensions of the beak, but they function like teeth. And we've got a wide variety of birds on Earth now. So we've got the smallest is the bee hummingbird, native to Cuba. It's about 2 inches long, with the largest being the ostrich, an African species that can be about 9 feet. And in Kentucky, we've got similar, not quite the same, but similar breadth of large and small birds, with their smallest being our little friend here, the ruby-throated hummingbird, and the largest species that passes through, at least, being the trumpeter swan. Now, in Kentucky, we have about 250 species of birds. They're really cool. We've talked about them extensively on this show, and we'll be talking about them more as the months go on. Some of those groups are kind of one-hit wonders, as I sort of think of them, like kingfishers. We only have 1 species of kingfisher found throughout Kentucky. We mostly just have 1 species of crane, etc. Whereas other diverse groups like the perching bird order, passeriforms, we have many species of passerines in Kentucky, and some of them have really diverse families in them, like Parulidae, which is the wood warbler family. We have many species of wood warbler in Kentucky, and if you're interested in birding, now is a great time of year to go out and see those birds as they're migrating through, and for the birds that are going to breed here, establishing their breeding territories. I believe this might be my last slide. So with that, that is this month's Wings of Kentucky on what is a bird.
That was really neat. I didn't realize we were going to have a history lesson, but that was really neat. I liked it.
Yeah, really cool. A taxonomic kind of journey, if you will. And
you kind of wonder sometimes, like, how did that? Because when he said the crocodiles and the birds, I'm like, huh? What's going on? How is that even possible? You know what I mean? So it was just really interesting.
It really is. And I think a lot of times when we think about the natural world, some of the stuff we don't maybe critically think about, right? You know, how things are the way they are today.
Exactly.
And related, what we can do to kind of support natural resources that are out there, right? And one of the things that we wanted to talk a little bit about today was stewardship.
Right, definitely.
Right. So recently we saw an announcement that the National Association of Conservation Districts was celebrating Forest Stewardship Week, and that happens to be going on this week. And I wanted to share like a little graphic. Sorry if you're on the podcast, you won't be able to see this, but just 1 second here. So they're celebrating their National Stewardship Week, right? So they're affiliated with the NRCS though too, right? So in Kentucky, we have in each of our counties, we have a conservation district, and that's made up of local folks, right? That they're actually elected to those positions. We have a board of supervisors, and they are in charge of kind of coordinating conservation efforts at that local level. And they're supported by the state Division of Conservation as well as the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And they work together hand in hand to try to get conservation done locally, right? And stewardship and managing our forests is certainly a big part of that, and they do play in that. So what I'm going to put in
that hand concept you were talking about.
Yes, no doubt. So I'm going to put in the chat pod for everyone. This is a link to some of the forestry information related to what NRCS and the conservation districts kind of work on. So once you get in here, you'll see that there is a lot of information that's out there, right? We have all kinds of forestry resources, as you can see here. They have their National Forestry Handbook that's available as a PDF. We also have information if you're interested in agroforestry, and some people are, how do we kind of combine agricultural and forest management? So we have resources on that. There's great links in there for that. So I just want to share that with everybody else. And it's also a great reminder of the services and programs that they have available. Right. So we encourage you to get with your local offices, and that may be a conservation office, a local Division of Conservation office. It may be a local NRCS service center. And both of those organizations can help you get signed up for some of these programs because they have so many ongoing programs to support activities that help the environment. And help conservation, but they also help agriculture, and they help foresters and forest landowners kind of care for their property as well. So on this link, if you'll scroll down to the bottom of it, I shared in the chat pod, you'll see that there's a nice detailed approach to how you can get assistance. And many times, Renee, knowing where to get the information and who to talk to.
Half the battle, right?
It really is. Trying to sort through all of that stuff. Who can help me do this or that? So I'll encourage our listeners and viewers out there to make sure that they're very familiar with their local NRCS service centers as well as their conservation districts, because it's a great resource. And we also have in Kentucky a state level conservation cost share program that it's administered by the Division of Conservation. So it's an opportunity to get some financial assistance.
That's always helpful.
Yeah, it is, because managing woodlands can be expensive. And we want to try to support woodland owners in that management because society benefits when we have well-managed woodlands. So here you can find out how to go through the process of getting some assistance, not only technical, but financial assistance through NRCS and the Conservation District. So I'll encourage folks to make sure they check that out.
So if someone's like listening to the podcast on this and not actually seeing this, do you think could they just Google NRCS and maybe this would?
Yes. So you could just go Kentucky NRCS and it should bring you up to the state's NRCS website. And from there, you can kind of find it throughout. You can also just Kentucky Division of Conservation. And then from there, you'll be able to quickly find your local conservation district contact information. And really reaching out to those groups is a great way to get started and enrolling in these programs and getting some of that technical and financial assistance that's out there for folks.
You were talking about agroforestry earlier, and I think there is a little bit of a disconnect between, oh well, I just farm, I plant crops or what have you. And I have 300, maybe 400 acres of woods over here, or maybe it's just 50 acres of woods, but and they may not think of themselves as a woodland owner, but they still could, correct?
Oh, without a doubt, Renee. And that brings up a really important point. We would really like to kind of make further inroads with our more traditional farmers, if you will, because I think you're right. They are so busy with the crops and the livestock that they're raising that maybe sometimes the trees might not get the consideration they deserve. And what we try to encourage all landowners, but especially our farming landowners, to think about their woods as a farm asset, right? We know that our farmers are great managers of their resources.
They have to be.
They have to be, right? Because their livelihood depends on it. But we'll encourage them to kind of think broader, to think about the whole farm and to think about those woodlands out there. Because as farmers know, you have to tend things, right? You have to do a little culturing. That's agriculture, right?
Exactly.
So, and trees are no different. Right. There are a few times in the life of a forested area that we can have some really positive interventions and really kind of control the way that future forest will look. And we know that has big implications on what tree species will be there and what quality they'll be. So if you're ever interested in harvesting timber in Kentucky or elsewhere, then having high quality, well-managed woodlands will make that a much more valuable proposition for you. So,
and you
that's a great point.
Now, and maybe 20 years down the road, you decide you want to harvest those.
Right, you're in a much better position. You really are. And had our grandparents been thinking of some of that stuff, we would have better quality woods than we have today, right? One of the challenges we have is we've not really given our woodlands the attention they deserve.
Right.
So that's why I was so excited to hear about the, celebrating Forest Stewardship Week. And, if we have any Star Wars fans out there.
That's a cool graphic.
It was, but it's May the Forest be with you, right? And so, that was neat. But I also wanted to show the group, if we could, just one second. A couple of other resources available. I want to talk briefly about the Kentucky Division of Forestry and their efforts to, sorry, let me bounce this around here. Trying to find our, let me share that again with everybody here.
Yeah, the forest is up there.
I'll see if I can
share that.
Okay, real quick. So that was for those that are viewing. This
was a really neat graphic, and may the forest be with you. So I thought we thought that was really neat to show participants that are viewing this. It's just a kind of cool thing, especially if you're in Star Wars.
Yes, very creative efforts there by the Conservation District. So appreciate them doing that. But we also wanted to share with you real quick, the Kentucky Division of Forestry. They have a whole program that is dedicated, and I'm putting this in the chat pod for our viewers, where you can get assistance, right? Forest stewardship assistance. And this is part of a national program. So the U.S. Forest Service oversees the U.S. Forest Stewardship Program, but it's administered at the state level. So they work very closely with the state divisions of forestries to try to get this stewardship program in place. And here in Kentucky, we have a very robust program. And we'll have them on someday in the near future talking about, because there's a new leader of that program. And we'll have him on to talk about that soon. But I just want to give you a little preview about what that is, because many people don't realize how much assistance is out there to support them and trying to care for their woodlands. And there's a lot, right? It really is. And so I wanted to highlight the Kentucky Division of Forestry and their forest stewardship efforts. And we're talking about Stewardship Week. And they are the ones who do administer the stewardship program in Kentucky. And really what that entails, if you own more than 10 acres of woodlands, then it's a minimum requirement for eligibility to participate in the program. They can send a forester out, meet with you, discuss your objectives, what you care about, what's important to you from your woodlands.
Everybody's is different, right?
They really are.
And might be wildlife. You might actually be timber. You might be,
or both.
Or both.
Yeah. And so they try to match up what you desire from your woodlands, your objectives, with what you have on your woodlands, right? You have to be realistic, and we all may want a certain thing, but if the property,
I want a white oak stand, and you don't have that,
right? So it's hard to just automatically create that, right?
Yes.
But with time and with practices, we can help nurture that forest and culture it to get your objectives achieved, right? So that's really important. So once you kind of decide on what you want to do with your woodlands, they'll help you evaluate those woodlands. They'll do some cursory inventories to kind of see what's out there. They'll alert you if there's any issues going on. Maybe you have some invasive plants that you weren't aware of. Maybe there's some trespass on the backside of your property that, unfortunately, but they can help alert you to some of those things. So then they will, once they have that inventory in place and they know what you're interested in, then they will kind of look at the capacity of the land, and they will use that as a way to develop a plan to help address whatever issues you might have on your property. And they'll do this in a way to kind of help you move that property toward meeting your objectives. So if you're interested in wildlife, they're going to help you do practices that would be attractive to the wildlife of interest. Likewise with timber or recreation or whatever you want to use your woodlands for.
And what's that plan called?
Right. So that's a forest stewardship plan. And we call that, it's really a woodland management plan, right? And we always talk about the importance of having a plan. And none of us have enough time or money, right?
No,
that's kind of a
doesn't matter how much you have.
So if we can save people time and money, we want to do that. And one of the best ways we can do that is by having a very well thought out plan. So we're not wasting a lot of motion or a lot of efforts that may not really kind of yield the results we want. So that forest stewardship plan will include, in addition to a map of your property, divided up into kind of management units, or what we call stands. It will make prescriptions on what should be done in those areas, which is really a nice thing to have that professional guidance on your land, talking with you, your kind of unique situation. So they'll develop this tailored plan for your property, and those prescriptions, they can help you sign up for some of these conservation programs, right? And so get some of that financial assistance if there's any costs associated with it. And that rolls back,
no, you're fine,
to NRCS and the conservation districts, who are the keepers of a lot of those programs.
But how much is this plan going to cost me as a landowner?
Well, fortunately, we have good taxpayers out there, and this is a tax supported service, right? So they're a part of the Kentucky state government, and they get some support through the U.S. Forest Service to support this program, but also our tax dollars help support that. And I think we would all recognize that that's a worthwhile benefit for all of us in society. We need healthy, productive woodlands. Our society depends on them. So anything that we can do to help promote that is a good thing. So the Division of Forestry can develop these plans for you with these prescriptions, and then they can kind of help you navigate the process of getting some of that financial assistance if there's some work that has to be done. And hopefully they can help you find some folks that are able to do that work if you're not able to do it yourself. So it's an amazing opportunity to get a lot of information about your property that's really tailored to what you want to do with your property. So I wanted to highlight the Kentucky Division of Forestry and their forest stewardship program, because it's awesome.
Yeah. And speaking of a major opportunities, we also offer one.
We do. And I'm really excited to be showing everybody this link right here, and I'll drop it into the chat pod as well. We have upcoming our 2024 Kentucky Woodland Owner Short Course. And this is a program that we'll be talking about in much more detail here in a few weeks. But we wanted to kind of highlight it now that the registration is up and running. And I will encourage you, if you are interested in participating in Woodland Owner Short Course, register early. We have limited seats for our field sessions. So if that's something that's important to you, I would strongly encourage you to register early. And fortunately, our From the Woods Today listeners and viewers are going to get kind of a first crack.
They are
at that. So what we're showing you right now is our Woodland Owner Short Course page, where you can get onto the registration. And we've got a little registration link right there on the right when you get to it. But you'll get a kind of an overview of what we're going to be doing. And what we've done with this program, Renee, over the years is we've worked with all of the kind of forestry and wildlife and natural resource agencies in Kentucky, as well as folks like the Kentucky Woodland Owners Association, to develop these programs to really try to help woodland owners be good stewards of their property. And a big part of this program is really connecting these woodland owners with those organizations that are out there, such as the Kentucky Division of Forestry, local conservation districts, or local NRCS service centers, those, and Fish and Wildlife that's out there, consultant foresters, and others that really provide on the ground support to woodland owners on property.
But what's good is that we're bringing them, all of those people, to the woodland owners. They're not actually having to go across the state and try to find out who do I need to talk to.
Yes, you're exactly right. So what we are doing with this program is we're going to start it off with 5 evening sessions, and we're going to be talking about a variety of different topics that are important to woodland owners in the state. We're going to start off, and these presentations are going to be led by our staff and faculty here in our department, as well as some of our partner organizations, including Kentucky NRCS. Mr. John Schultz is going to be on the program, the state forester for NRCS, and it's going to be talking about some of the programs that they have available, kind of a highlight of what we mentioned a few minutes ago. But we're going to be talking about things as just how do you even get started with woodland management. I think a lot of landowners may be intimidated because they may not know a lot about their woodlands. They may not know even how to get going on it, right? So we're going to try to make that demystify that a little bit, highlight what you can do with your woodlands, highlight who can help you, and try to make those connections for you. We'll also spend some time talking about tree identification, which is important to a lot of people. Is. And it's a first step, right?
It is, and the thing about it is a lot of, the tree of the weeks that we have, that's kind of like, once you have figured out what you have, here's all this information, but how do you get to from the starting point to the tree of the week?
Right.
So that's the kind of thing that, she will talk to you about. And, it's like, okay, I've got this tree. Now what?
Yeah.
How do I ID that?
Right.
So that's a good learning tool to have.
It really is, and we'll try to reinforce those in our field sessions that we have as well. But if you don't know the trees that you have, it's hard to manage them, right?
Right.
Because we know that different trees have different requirements and they can be successful in different locations. So if you don't know what you're dealing with, it's hard to kind of make good management recommendations.
Right. So, or at least have the tools and the keys to be able to figure out what you have.
Exactly. And while we do have a lot of trees in Kentucky, over 120 native tree species, I think once people kind of learn that process of identifying trees, it kind of makes it a lot easier and it kind of less intimidating.
It's fun too.
Yes. And then we'll spend an evening session talking about woodland health, and we'll have Dr. Ellen Crocker leading that session, and she'll be going over some of the key issues that are that are facing our woodlands here in Kentucky and what folks can do about that. And that's really an important thing, but we have to stay on all the time.
So we're talking like bugs, diseases,
those
invasives,
types of issues, but also what you can do about them, right? And how you can make your woodlands more healthy, so they're more resistant to those types of attacks. And then we'll be talking about something that's really important to a lot of folks is wildlife, right? We'll have Dr. Matt Springer leading a session on wildlife and woodlands, and many of our woodland owners are really excited about being woodland owners because of the wildlife.
How do I get more fill in the blank into my woods?
Exactly. So we'll have Dr. Springer covering kind of that interconnections between woodlands and wildlife, and some of the things that we can do to our woodlands to make them much more attractive to wildlife.
So I know there are specific things, and he's been on the show before and has talked about that. It's like, well, this kind of wildlife prefers cover, and if you don't have it, then you're not going to have that specific wildlife in your woods. So I think it depends on what you're wanting.
Yes.
If you want deer, you might have that, but if you want grouse, maybe not.
Right.
So you have to go figure out what you want.
Right. And fortunately, you got people that can help you, right? You don't have to figure it out all by yourself, right? Which is a wonderful thing, because there's so much to know. Nobody can know everything. Right?
Exactly.
So then we'll follow that next session up with a session talking about carbon and climate change issues and how they interact with our woodlands. And Dr. Jacob Muller's been leading our efforts here out of our department on that topic. And he's got a big series of fact sheets and other information that he's going to be talking about, as well as some practical things that woodland owners can do. There's a lot of interest in these carbon programs and carbon credits and things like that. So he'll explain how that works as well, if it's something you're interested in. And then we'll wrap up the online sessions with the final session talking about water quality in woodlands. And we'll have Dr. Amanda Gumbert here, and she'll be going over some of the things that we can do to help ensure that our woodlands are contributing to high quality water, which is important to all of us.
Yes,
it really
exactly.
is. And then she'll be tag team in that session with John Schultz of NRCS, talking about some of these programs that are available to support all the things that we were talking about in these online sessions.
Nice.
So we got these 5 online sessions lined up starting on June 11th, and they run on Tuesdays and Thursdays through June 25th. And then that's really meant to provide a primer and a solid background for our participants on key issues that are important if you're trying to manage your woodlands here in Kentucky. And then we've got 2 field sessions lined up for you to kind of get out there and see some of these practices that we talked about on the ground. But more importantly, Renee, it's an opportunity to work directly with some of those organizations I mentioned, like the Kentucky Division of Forestry, Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, NRCS, consulting foresters. All of those folks are going to be at the field sessions with us, and they'll be serving as leaders on these sessions.
And for the sessions, we have those listed here too.
Yep.
You pick one or the other, and that's we've kind of varied them throughout the state.
Right.
So you have one or the other, but it's a full day where we provide you lunch and information and things like that. And so we're kind of like, I guess you could say practice what we're preaching.
Yeah.
Because we're teaching you things on the online session, and then we're kind of showing you the same kind of things. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that's a good point. So the way this is all organized is we have these 5 online sessions. Now, if you don't want to go to one of the field sessions or the dates don't work for you, you can still participate in the online sessions only. So we have a registration option that allows you just to participate in those online sessions. And fortunately, we have a number of seats available for that. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can sign up just for that. However, if you do want to get out in the field with us, we have these 2 sessions signed up. The first one's going to be on July 13th at Robinson Forest, a place near and dear to our heart here.
If you ever wanted to see Robinson, now's the time.
It's a great opportunity. Plus, we've worked it in. We were down there scouting out the field trip or the field day for that, and you're going to get a chance to get up to see the fire tower.
Oh, nice.
So we're going to make sure that everybody that wants to gets a chance to get up and see the fire tower. And the view from there is amazing.
It is amazing.
It's a great photo opportunity.
It is. I've taken several photos from there.
So you'll get a chance to see that, but you also get a chance to see some of the work that's going on at Robinson Forest. And again, interact with some of the people that can help you on your own property. So if you're in kind of eastern central Kentucky, this may be one that's of interest to you to attend. And again, we're going to have folks from the Kentucky Division of Forestry, Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, NRCS, and consulting foresters at these field events. So you're going to
it doesn't matter which one you're at, both of them are going to have.
Yes, we'll have those representatives. Now, obviously, the topics might be a little bit
depending on
where we're at, but that's okay. And then on August 10th, we're going to be over in Hart County at Roundstone Native Seed. And this is a big company that's been working for a long time, basically on trying to get native prairies and native grasslands reestablished. And they are amazing. And the amount of work that they have done on that place and the amount of research that they've done as far as understanding these various native plants and what it takes to get them established is phenomenal. And so they've done a lot of woodland work as well. So I can't wait for folks to get out and see what they're doing out at Roundstone Native Seed. And so we'll be touring that property as well. We'll get a chance to hear from Roundstone and some of the work that they're doing. But again, we'll have Kentucky Division of Forestry, Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, NRCS, and consultant foresters there as well, to talk about some of the management activities that are going on. So folks will have the chance, if they want, they can sign up for all 5 online sessions. It's kind of a package, or they can sign up for the online sessions and one of the field sessions. So we'll encourage you all to do that. We've shared that chat in the chat pod, and since it's relatively short, I'll try to read it out for our podcasters. wosc.ca.uky.edu/2024 WOSC. And that's a direct link to get to our registration page. So we really encourage you all, if this is something you're interested in, to go ahead and sign up for that right away. But we'll be doing a full session kind of preview of the Woodland Owner Short Course coming up in a few weeks right here on From the Woods Today.
Exactly. So we've had a lot of information during this show, which is great. And another thing that I'm trying to get out to people who watch the show is, if you know about us, share us.
Please.
Yeah, go on Facebook. If you see us on Facebook, like us, share the post, what have you. But if I've set up a new thing, and I'm probably y'all are gonna, if you watch it every week, you're gonna be sick of hearing this, because I'm trying to get everybody where they know about it, on board with it. We have an email system that if you want an early advance notice, anywhere between 1 and 3 days, you can check that to know about our topics. We also have one, if you want one anywhere between 1 to 3 hours before our show, you can check that box. So you can do both, or you can do one or the other. And it just would help us for you to get the information that you want. So if you want to put your information in the chat pod, if you do not receive these, just put your email in the chat pod. All I need is your email address, and then let me know which one you want, whether you want to be an early notifier or you want to be day of notifier. Just put your information in there. If you are on YouTube or you're listening to this, you can email forestry.extension@uky.edu, and we can get you on that list. Send me your email, let me know which one. But there's also a whole bunch of other things you can sign up for on that list, such as, it could be topics. Say, I'm interested in wildlife. That's it. I don't want to hear anything about your shows other than if it's wildlife related. So if anything we do, whether Dr. Matt Springer is having an event, or whether we're doing a show on wildlife, anytime if you check wildlife only, all you're going to hear is wildlife. If we're doing something on trees, I'm not going to send you the show. So you can vary it down to what you're interested in. And I think that is best for people, because, I don't want to flood their email if they don't want it, so if you want to put your email in the chat pod, if you do not get these, go ahead and do that. Give me your email address and what you would like me to put it on, and I will be happy to do that.
Yeah. And or send us an email at forestry.extension@uky.edu, and we can get you on that way.
Exactly.
But, Renee, I appreciate your effort trying to make it easy for people to kind of keep up with what's going on with the
trying
show.
to help them out, so that one, it's a reminder, because I know your weeks get busy.
Everybody's busy.
And two, it may be that you're not interested in something that we have, today, but next week, yes, I'm all for that, so it just depends, and everybody's different. And so I want to get all the information out that people might want.
Certainly. Yeah. As always, we want to be good servants to you all, and try to help you all be good stewards of our woodlands, wildlife, and natural resources.
So, also we have the FromTheWoodsToday.com, where people can go and they can watch hours of content.
You can catch up on any old shows, or, let us know if there's something you want to see. If you've seen something out, if you're out in your woods and you see something you hadn't seen before, something maybe concerns you a little bit, send us an image, and we might be able to kind of put at least a little segment together on it, try to help, because if you're seeing it and you're curious, there's probably others
somebody else's too. And several shows that we've done, we were talking before the show started, several shows that we have done have been people just sending me a picture and going, I don't know what this is, could you tell us? And we were like, yeah. And then we're like, let's do a show on that.
That's a good deal.
So folks, we greatly appreciate you joining us every week, because if you weren't, we wouldn't have a show. So we really appreciate
it's all about you.
It's all about you. It really is. So that's why we want your feedback, and let us know what you'd like to hear about. We do have kind of like what we call the after party afterwards, once we stop the recording. So if you have any other questions, you can ask them then. But I guess until then, we'll see them next week at 11.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
From the woods today.